Mask mandates, vaccines for children, health passports, all hot topics. In different states, we have different debates, but what we haven't seen in America are large-scale protests against these measures. There have been small local ones here and there, but nothing like what's been erupting in parts of Europe, particularly in France, where hundreds of thousands take to the streets each week to protest government overreach. Italy and the UK have also seen big demonstrations, but it's not the case in all countries, as you'll soon find out. Today, we reach across the Atlantic to hear from dissenting voices in France, the UK, and Belgium. So we're joined now by Alan Miller. He's joining us from the UK, and he's the founder of the Open for All campaign and also the founder of the Nighttime Industries Association. And Alexandre Juving-Brunet, he joins us from France, a former military police officer, including working in military intelligence, and he's still a captain, a reserve captain, and now in the private sector as an entrepreneur. And we have Sam Brokken with us. He's joining us from Belgium, professor of health sciences, a public health expert and researcher. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
So the point of this discussion today is to give everybody a sense of what's been going on in Europe. We've been seeing protests in some countries, hearing a bunch of different things. We know some new laws have just passed in France. So why don't we start there? Alexandre, why don't you start us off and let us know what the situation currently is in France?
In France, the situation is very volatile because the French people is very angry facing the government and the government decisions and president decisions and also speeches because beyond the legal aspect, our presidency and also the government did not stop putting oil on the fire and trying to trigger the wrath, the anger from people because there was much humiliation. There was much bad words from our president, and many people increasingly feel it illegitimate to be the protector and the defender of our constitution, our social contract, and our people.
Specifically, what are they angry about? What are the laws that you're talking about, and what has he said recently that so angered the populace?
The 12th of July, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, made, to my mind, a historical speech. During this historical speech, he split the French people between two parts, the vaccinated people and the non-vaccinated people. And for us, it's very important because we are the people of freedom, the human rights, the rights against segregation. And this is a basic segregation regarding health issues. So for us, it's a direct attack against our institutions and constitution.
And so what do the protests look like? We see reports about big protests on the streets in France, but can you give us a sense?
The protests in France are historical too. The majority of people taking part in the protests are the real French people. They are young, they are elderly people, they are in poverty, they are rich, they are liberals, they are communists, they are everybody. French people decided one day, it was the 17th of July, 5 days after Macron's speech, they decided to go in streets and to go on strike, not a strike, but to protest everywhere. And there were thousands of people holding the French flag to protect their freedom and to protest all together to defend their rights. And it was something very unusual to see because many French people themselves and myself, we were believing just before that the French people did not have enough spirit or bravery to go and to defend their rights. And we are wrong because the French people facing these dramatic situations took his destiny in its hands. Because the major problem around Macron's speech and Macron's decision government is they just tackle the bad subject, freedom. So it is the same with our English friends with the habeas corpus and all of this. They just tackled the bad subject, and also inside this bad subject, they wanted to take the rights from families, from father and mother, to manage their children's life and education.
So let's move to the UK now, because there's a bit of a continuum of reactions going on here. So Alan, can you fill us in on what's been going on there?
Sure. Originally, the UK government said that it would be voluntary to have vaccine passports at certain venues. And then on so-called Freedom Day, which was on the 19th of July, a month later than when the original Freedom Day was meant to be, the Prime Minister said, you're now all free, but we're going to have mandatory vaccine passports at nightclubs and other venues with lots of people in them. This is absolutely unacceptable. We have a campaign called Open for All, where we have 1,000 of the key British operators, some of the biggest chains to the smallest independents, nightclubs, bars, restaurants, festivals and events. It's also the case that whilst the majority of the British public have been vaccinated, 85% have been vaccinated now, and we should remember that what we were told was 15 million jabs for freedom. We were meant to protect the elderly and the vulnerable. We have many more now that have been vaccinated, and they're actually trying to get children vaccinated as well now, which many are very concerned about because of the risk-reward ratio. So mandatory vaccination to enter. Now, even many people who are vaccinated think this is completely over the top. In fact, the Sun newspaper, which is a very popular newspaper with ordinary people, 93% of people said this was over the top and unnecessary. We know that vaccine passports are unnecessary, they're discriminatory, they're illiberal, and they're wrong. Show me your papers to get into a bar or a club or a restaurant. Health privacy, completely unacceptable. There's a whole range of information in the NHS app, including your ethnicity, criminal offences, alleged criminal offences, other health data. This is all entirely private. Winston Churchill got rid of ID cards in Britain in 1952. We have never voted for them. The British public do not want them. The idea that you have to show your health status to get into a bar, restaurant or a nightclub is completely unacceptable. And there is a larger border campaign going to be happening, uniting all the different sectors. And they're saying it's going to be mandatory from September, but there are going to be legal challenges, there are going to be local challenges to the MPs, and there are protests, and there are going to be significant challenges to this. They have done many U-turns already. We've seen that campaigns in schools and elsewhere. And whilst they want to nudge young people to have the vaccination, they should just try and convince them. The idea that they turn our society into a biotech, show me your papers society is completely unacceptable. It's completely un-British. It's against freedom and democracy, and it's unnecessary, and we're not going to have it.
So let me ask you, Alexandre was saying it's, people from all parties, all beliefs that are out on the streets protesting this. Do you feel it's the same way in Britain, or is it certain segments of society that are more opposed to these measures?
It's very notable that the last few protests, there are many people, hundreds and hundreds of thousands, many who have never been to a protest before of any kind. Families, old, young. There's a fury at this overreach, this overstepping of these controls, and it's just very widespread and general. Okay,
so Sam, what is going on in Belgium? I think it's a bit of a different story there.
Yeah, indeed it is. First of all, we're a smaller country, of course, not like France or the UK. So for a government, it's much easier to control. What we have seen up until today is that we only have a small percentage of the people really speaking out or speaking forward against the taken measures and the COVID passport and the mandatory vaccination, which is lying ahead of us. But in France, it's a different story. In the UK as well, there are many more protests than we have. Belgium doesn't really have a good track record when it comes to protesting against the government. There is an index which is called the Hofstede Index, has 6 different parameters which cover cross-cultural parameters, and one of them is what we call uncertainty avoidance. And Belgium is on number 1, spot number 1, with 94%. Basically, this means that they are very willing to just follow the lead of the government. So it's very difficult for us as people with concerns or proposing alternative measures to step forward.
Be sure to watch the entire episode, now available exclusively at epochtv.com, a new completely censorship-free premium subscription platform. Brought to you by the Epoch Times. See you there.